Hi everybody, just a quick tutorial about something that you received in the intercampus mail. It's your Life on Earth, a Fossil History Map. So we're going to go ahead and walk through what's inside here, talk a little bit about ways you can use it with your students, and then some options for preparing it so you can mount it vertically like this. So this should be the box that you've received, and inside you're going to find the following materials. Now there should be one of these for every 5th grade teacher, so if you're finding you need a couple of them for group work, you might want to borrow one from your teammate, or if you need an extra one, you could borrow the one that the PLC copy has. So in here you're going to find some fossil specimens. These are plastic replica of fossil specimens. You're going to find the guide. There's lots of good information in here. Some of it's a little bit higher than 5th grade, but what I want to draw your attention to is the key. This will help you know which fossils go where. So this will be really helpful for you to have. And then there's also a glossary here in the back. There's some other information in here. If you're not that familiar with fossils, this will show you a really nice lined drawing of what some of the fossils are, just to kind of get you started. So there's a great little informational book here. They've included some clay, so I'm assuming if your students wanted to make some molds of some of the fossils, you could give some of the students fossils and then take the fossil replicas and let them press them into the mold to look at some of the detail. That's optional, but that's why that's in there. And then there's going to be 1 or 2 tabs for you to put onto the back if you wanted to hang it on the wall. So those are the things that it came with when we purchased it. We're also including, and this is an addition that we decided to put in, 2 strips of heavy-duty Velcro that have adhesive on the back. And I'll talk to you about what that's for in just a moment. When I first ordered these, I was very excited because of the visuals that it has, but I kind of wondered how we would use it in the classroom. As it's designed now, it would have to be on a tabletop, which takes up a lot of space, and then you could put the fossil models here. I always think about them walking off, it getting knocked over, and so forth. So I thought about using the Velcro to secure those in there so they could be removed if you wanted to. So now that you kind of see all the things that you have, I want to show you a couple of different ways that you could use this. So we had talked about you could leave it on the tabletop if you wanted to, but I'm going to actually show it to you vertically, and we're going to look at some different ways that you might use this with your students. So the first thing I want to point out is that you also in your box have this little note, and this is just a reminder to help you remember what are some of the things that you can use this poster for that really will resonate with your students in the standards. And the standard this one is really used for is 5.7D, which is right here, using fossils as evidence of past living organisms and the nature of the environments at the time using models. So this is a model, so this is one of many that you'll use with your students, and you're using these fossils as evidence to try to figure out what the environment was like in the past. So you could probably see some really literal connections here for this particular standard. Your students have had not much experience with fossils or a fossil record, so this would be really nice for you to have up in your classroom and to use it several times throughout your unit. So I'll talk about how I got these to stay in here in just a moment, but first of all I just want to point out some information that we have on here. So first of all, up at the top, here's the title, and we have eons, eras, periods, and epochs. I think I said that right. And then you can read that down the side here. This is nice to know. It tells you about how many millions of years ago. That's what MYA stands for. Not super essential that they understand all of those terms, but it's a great way for them to know how to start reading this as a timeline. So this is going to be the most recent, and this is going to be the oldest. So that'll be something that the students will need to understand, that the oldest layers are here at the bottom, the youngest layers are going to be at the top, and that represents how life on Earth has changed over time. This is a vertical view. You'll also want to point that out to the students, that this is almost like a slice if you were slicing down through a cake, versus a horizontal view that you'll see in some of the Ames lessons, like recording a record of a fossil, where it just shows the one layer that you look at. Just FYI, as we tie this into maybe fossil fuel formation, that's going to happen about in here, about 300 million years ago. So that's a way that you can kind of tie that in a little bit. So the other thing I want to point out is that we have representation of aquatic life, which is in blue. We have terrestrial life, which is going to be more in the green. And they might notice some patterns here that as we look at the older records, it was mostly, if not all, aquatic. And then we started to have more land that would show up. And not super essential to have them understand the why, but just a pattern for them to start to look at. You can also start to talk about some of the organisms they recognize. Most of them they won't recognize. And when you find a portion of something that you don't even know existed, it can be really tough to identify. That's another reason why this is such a great model. So when I envisioned this, when I purchased it, I really thought it'd be very impactful to have it up on the wall. And so we've used a couple of different adhesives to try to make sure that these fossils stay on the actual map itself. So we use some Velcro that's heavy duty on here, and you have the option of doing that or not. It would probably take about an hour maybe to cut the pieces of Velcro to put these on, and I'll just kind of show you. It's a pretty strong connection if you can get it in there. And we just use the rougher side here and really push it down, and it shouldn't come off. And then the softer side here. And I just kind of played around to see how it fit in there so that it would make the best contact. So I'm going to leave that up to you to decide if you'd like to do that or not. The last thing I'd like to just point out is that this actually has two different views that you can talk to your kids about perspective. This is more of an aerial view, like a bird's eye view, and then encourage them to understand how this is truly that cross section that shows the Earth's interior. And you can even point out how the different layers are represented not only by different colors, but different symbols. You can encourage them to kind of touch those different layers, which just makes it a little bit more interactive. So when they start to draw their own models on paper, make those connections, or whenever they see a diagram, you can help them make those connections too. So I hope you enjoy this new resource. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to come out in person, talk to you on the phone, or by email. Thanks so much for everything you do.